Beverly Johnson was the first black model to appear on the cover of American Vogue in August 1974. She is one of 5 children from Buffalo, New York, and with the help of her extraordinary mother, she established an impressive career. Over the years, she's graced the cover of several magazines, walked countless runways, been an actress, recording artist, and had a colorful romantic life that has included relationships with Arthur Ashe, Danny Sims, and Mike Tyson. With the help of Allison Samuels, she tells her story in The Face That Changed It All. It's published by Atria Books, and I'm pleased it brings Beverly Johnson to the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's so great to have you here in the studio.
Well, thank you for having me.
Too bad it's not TV, so everyone could see. But your book begins with an ode to your mother, Gloria Johnson, who you write, quote, "always had the most towering presence in my life, all of my life, and what a gift she has been." And now she's battling Alzheimer's, and this is a very painful disease. Does your mom at this point even recognize who you are? Does she recognize you?
She does not know my name, but if you're with her for a while, then she understands the relationship. She was with me and walked the red carpet with me last night at the big launch party at the Museum of the City of New York. Mm-hmm. And as the light bulbs were going off, they said, "Go this way, point this way." And she was very conscious of, her and the way she looked. And, it's really taught me about really honoring the moments, because it's all about the moments now.
How old was she when the symptoms first appeared?
Well, actually, she was like 80 years old, and it was really, she was very, she had went back to school and got her BA at, Gainesville University in her 70s, and my mother's an extraordinary woman. She mentored a number of girls right through junior high school on to college, and it was a big... Anyways, it's the circle of life, and we're dealing with it, and we're doing the best we can.
From the very beginning, your mother was a huge advocate for your dreams. I had a mother like that, too. You write that your father forbade you from entering the modeling world, but it was your mother who defied him. Was this the first time she did anything like that?
First time anything like that. They were a team. They were a tag team. And... I don't know. And I didn't find out until later, years later, that she had wanted to be a model. I did not know that.
So she was living through you.
Yes.
And so throughout your career, did your mom travel with you to any of your photo shoots or any of your big shows?
I took her to Europe and to London and to Paris, and after a while she told me, because I was in so many magazines, it was getting a little expensive. And so, so they had to stop buying the magazines. They're so sweet. But, it was just, I really do think she shared in my life in many ways. And my mother was, that's the woman you call to cry on their shoulder and tell her everything, that nobody else will even want to hear. And she's an extraordinary woman, and I'm so glad that I still have her with me.
Now, you grew up in Buffalo, as I said before, and you write that you never thought of yourself as pretty.
I wasn't pretty. I was an ugly duckling.
But come on. I mean, everyone says that. But...
Honey, the pictures are in the book to prove it. I was an ugly duckling. I was tall, I was flat-chested, but I didn't care. What I cared about was winning swimming meets and tournaments, and also excelling in school. I was an avid reader.
You called yourself a nerd.
I was a nerd, but I was happy with myself. I was an introvert, but I was very happy. But one of the things my mother told me, and I'll share this with you, is that I only had one friend. I still have her, lifelong friend. Day we were born, lifelong, grew up next door to each other. I said, Mommy, I really want to make more friends. I only have one friend. I love that. She said, well, why don't you just try smiling more? So I went to school the next day. I was about in 6th grade. I was just smiling. They were, what are you smiling about? Before I knocked that smile off your face. So the smiling didn't work very much.
Well, I mean, you faced a lot of bullies when you were in school.
Yes.
I mean, and why was that? Because of your bookishness, or just kids being mean? Because, well, kids are mean.
Kids are mean. Kids are mean. And also, I learned that my younger sister, a year younger than I, were stealing their boyfriends. I'm like, why don't you go beat her up? But no. but the thing was that I remember walking across the stage, because I was always on the honor roll, and being booed. And it didn't bother me at all. I went because I was proud of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. But, there are a lot of incidents like that in the book that people will find maybe familiar in their own lives.
I'm speaking with Beverly Johnson, whose new book, The Face That Launched It All, brings her here to the show. She's written the book with Allison Samuels. African American, growing up in Buffalo, New York. How big was the black population in Buffalo at that time?
Oh, I don't know. I know that we lived in an all-white neighborhood. And, of course, it changed. And our school was maybe 20% white, 20% black. And, the neighborhood started to change. And, the white flight, started to happen. But, it's Buffalo, so we weren't in the South where there were the colored water fountains, but we were aware of it because of the civil rights movement on the television. But I grew up in a very overprotective family.
So they wouldn't let you go out and do any of the marches or anything like that. You were aware of the civil rights movement, but
we were told. Well, I remember my father mentioning a comment saying Martin Luther King is a troublemaker. This is really interesting. They were just very protective. We couldn't say the word black, curse, swear, anything in our household, and they didn't really want us to participate in that movement, but we couldn't help it as little kids, and that's why I wanted to become a lawyer, was because of watching, that civil rights movement on television, Martin Luther King and the dogs attacking I was so moved by that I thought I could do something by going into law.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing on this. So there you are in Buffalo. You were one of the first black cheerleaders in high school when you got into high school, but then you were thrown off the squad.
Yes.
And that's because you defended your sister. What happened there?
Well, I made this squad, and then they told me I was the first black cheerleader, and I'm, doing my cheers, and all of a sudden there's this, rumble going up in the bleachers, and I realize it's my sister. I leave my post, and I run up and see what's going on with my sister, and come back down to do the cheers, and that's all it took for them to kick me off the cheerleading team. My mother came, and they never said it was because of that. They said because I didn't know the cheers, and my mother made them give me an audition because she wanted to see herself whether and I was there with the assistant principal, not the principal, and they said, see, she didn't jump at the exact same time. No, my mother said, no, I don't see, but they didn't change their mind on that.
Now, then you went to, you talked about how you wanted to be a lawyer, and at Northeastern University, you majored in law and politics, but even at Northeastern, you had a bit of trouble on the race end. You had a white roommate who didn't talk to you, refused to talk to you for the entire year.
Yes.
What was that? How does that even work?
First of all, I was homesick, and then I have this roommate who did not want me to be her roommate, and her family. We would I would be reading, and she would turn off the lights. And I would have the book in the dark. Okay. And she never said a word to me the entire year. I must say, after I became this model and came back for another semester, she started to speak to me. And I started not to, but I changed my mind, and I befriended her. And she was very bright, and we did studying together. So in some way, I think I changed her.
Mm-hmm. And so you went off, became a model, came back, and that's when your life started to change. We were talking about modeling in the early 1970s. There weren't that many black models around then, were there?
Actually, there were more black models in the 70s than there are today. There were black modeling agencies. I mean, we were coming out of civil rights. We were like free, you know. We have overcome. And black movies, you know, what we had then, we have less now. And so it was a wonderful era, you know, to start a modeling career. And although there still weren't many women of color on certain magazines, we were beginning to be on the covers of those magazines, Glamour magazine, 17 magazine, B. Smith. You know, a lot of the women were making covers, but you could never get to this cover, Vogue. That was the Bible of the industry, and that stood here.
Right.
And you'll never reach that.
So Harry Belafonte figured prominently in the start of your modeling career. It was his seal of approval that launched your career.
I saw him and Sherry Belafonte, who's had 6 Vogue covers since mine, and I told him about the story, how he influenced my career, which he did not know. I was working at a store in New York on 57th and 7th, and this was the first time my mother and I came to New York to see this woman who could get me to the magazines. And she called in Harry Belafonte the most gorgeous man that I've ever seen. And not only was I speechless, my mother was too. And anyways, he just looked me up and down, and Corby, the manager, said, well, what do you think? He says, I think she's got it. And thus I went to Condé Nast and Glamour magazine. They said, yes, we want to use you. And the rest is history.
I'm speaking with Beverly Johnson about her new book, The Face That Changed It All. I'm Jonathan Capehart, sitting in for Leonard Lopate. And we're talking about her incredible modeling career. She was the first black model to grace the cover of Vogue magazine. The modeling industry, as you write about it, is one that is treacherous for a young woman. And you talk about your first photo shoot for Glamour on Fire Island, and the photographer that day followed you to your room and knocked on the door. You were only 18.
Yes.
What did you think?
I was terrified. So I remember the ferry coming up, you know, and on the dock there was this music and all these different colors, and then I realized they were men dancing together. So, you know, they got me off the boat, and now I'm dancing with, you know, all of these gay men together, which was a wonderful experience. And so the shoot started off on a really high note. And of course there was a Frank Horvath. That was the photographer. He was German. And he you know, go up and wash your face. I don't want you with any makeup on. What are you doing? You stupid. You this. And, you know, I did whatever. And then after that, he said, you know, could you come to my room? And I thought, well, you know, I'm going to really, you know, let him know that I'm going to do better and so on and so forth. And there he laid on the bed with his big hairy stomach out and said, sit here, right here. And I
Next
went,
to him?
in the bed. I said, I don't think so. And I just turned and walked to my room, and then I heard, you know,
The knocking on the door.
the knocking on the door. It was a rented house, and all of the, you know, stylists and hairdressers, and I was the only model. I'm sure they heard, but it was very terrifying.
You know, there are a lot of those things that happened to you during your career, and most notably, and it's been in the news of late, Bill Cosby. And though that story happened later, it was sort of an attempted rape by Bill Cosby. And you imply in the book that models are not treated with respect by a lot of men. And in that episode with Bill Cosby, and correct me if I'm wrong, he wasn't successful because you screamed and you ran out of the place.
I had a tirade, and he dragged me out of his place.
And you forgave Bill Cosby on Good Morning America yesterday, but you say you leave it to the Justice Department to figure out what his punishment should be. And you think that he's been a lightning rod for a much bigger conversation that needs to take place about men in power and rape culture. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, when I started this memoir in 2013, this was my chance to finally tell this encounter with Bill Cosby. So I worked with Allison Samuels. She gets the tape, she does the chapter, we hand it in to the editor, and they say, we can't use that chapter. There's legal liabilities. We don't want it. Okay, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't disappointed. We went on, and then 2014, when everything really came out, then the editor came back and said, about that Bill Cosby chapter, we like to put it in your book. This is indicative of what's been happening all along. We wanted to tell our story, but nobody wanted to hear it.
Was it hard to forgive him? Was it hard for you to acknowledge that it had happened?
Oh, no, I knew it happened. I knew it happened. I mean, that, left a scar there for sure. And that's how I live my life. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. And I have to forgive people for me to be able to move on.
And we have like about a minute and a half to 2 minutes left, but I can't let you go without talking about Studio 54.
Yes.
Now, if I remember right, the first time you went, you didn't leave for 3 days?
Yes, that's studio.
How does that happen?
Oh, dear. I detail it, but it did happen, and it was a wonderful experience in the sense of all of these bright minds in the industry and, discussion fashion. And they actually had clothes for you to change into. And then before you knew it, the party was beginning again. And I will never forget, I got to go to work. This is Monday morning. Went straight there to work, and they're picking confetti out of my hair and say, I know where you've been.
Confetti, not glitter? Glitter hadn't...
Well, glitter,
and confetti.
Not confetti.
Okay, so you got to give me a little something.
Yes.
You're there for 3 days. Where did you eat? Did you
they
even
brought
sleep?
They brought food in. I do remember taking a nap. And, designers were coming in and showing their collection. You're talking about Andy Warhol, all these really... I was happy that they were including me in this very elite circle. I didn't want to leave. I was up, in the balcony. That's like Steve Rubel's office. Not many people get to go there. But, it was just an amazing experience. I will never do it again. But it worked for them.
We didn't even get to Billy Potter,
Sims.
Billy. We didn't get to
first
Arthur
husband, second
Ashe,
husband,
all of
distinguished gentleman, Arthur Ashe.
But people can pick up your book. I've been speaking with supermodel, actress, and businesswoman Beverly Johnson about her childhood, her rise to the cover of Vogue, and her 3-decade career in modeling. Beverly will be discussing her memoir tonight at 6 p.m., the Tribeca Barnes & Noble at 97 Warren Street. Beverly Johnson, thanks so much. Wonderful to meet you. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you.